Yo, what's good? It's your man, 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Today I want to talk about why John Collins may look far better in Utah than he really ever did in Atlanta. I want to dive into that in this video. If you enjoy it, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I'm making my way towards 1,000 subs, so I definitely appreciate the love and support along the way. Yo, let me just start off by saying, sometimes I think that we forget to contextualize players on their teams. Right? There are very few players, very, very, very few players who get to a team and immediately have it built around them. Meaning that the players they bring in, the offensive system, the defensive schemes, are all built to maximize one or two elite talents. And if you're not one of those one or two guys, and most of the time it really is just one, then you end up playing a role. And that role may or may not accentuate all of your talent and ability and skills. And as a result, what we see as a product on the court during the games also reflects that it's not necessarily everything that you can do versus what your role is for this team, the scheme, and the system. You know, it's something that we noticed when you had DeAndre Ayton going to the Phoenix Suns. They were already building around Devin Booker. And so they had Devin Booker playing point guard for a bunch of years in DeAndre Ayton's early career. He is not a point guard. You didn't have them bring in a pass-first point guard who can set him up and toss him lobs and make him look good and kick him out, for kickouts and pick and pops. And, you didn't have a Mike Conley. You didn't have a Tre Jones. You didn't have one of those consummate point guards who just makes everyone better, brought in to make him look good. You had him trying to figure out being an NBA big man with a shooting guard playing point guard. And then when Chris Paul arrived, they became one of the slowest offensive systems in the NBA. Well, what does that do to a ultra athletic, mobile big man whose major strength is being able to get up and down the court and beat opposing bigs down the court to get easy looks? Well, it means he gets less looks. There's less shot attempts for him. And so his stats reflect the guys that he is playing second fiddle to. John Collins in a very similar way. When Tre Young arrived, and I'm not even saying that it should not have been Tre Young as the de facto player to build around. He's an incredible talent. He's one of the few transcendent players that we have in this game today. Guys that can dominate at the highest level. That in the playoffs, they make their imprint known every single time. And yet, the offensive system that they installed in Atlanta was what we refer to as a heliocentric offensive system, meaning that it evolved around one guy. Versus what you might see a Golden State Warriors, a Denver Nuggets, San Antonio Spurs, where it's about ball movement. It's about getting guys open, moving off the ball, a free-flowing system that allows that energy of ball movement to maximize the talent that they have on the court. And collectively is how they attempt to beat you versus individually. Now, I think pretty much that it should be a foregone conclusion that unless you have LeBron James, you're not going to win with a heliocentric offensive system. Unless you have a 6'9" point guard with a 40-inch vertical at 260 pounds who can pass, shoot, post up, and drive past anybody and dunk on them in his prime, you're probably not going to win a championship with a heliocentric offense. But this also speaks to the impact that it has on the other players and some of the frustrations that John Collins also brought up throughout his tenure in Atlanta. That the lack of ball movement minimizes his ability to get into a rhythm, to get easy looks, to get himself going so he can maximize his potential. You see, many times if you listen to other NBA veterans, they talk about sometimes getting that easy open look, that quick little post up opens up the rest of their game. That quick backdoor cut for a layup, a mismatch, getting a nice little jump hook, seeing the ball go through the rim really opens things up for them. Well, there's also a contrary point to that. standing around waiting for one guy to dribble the air out of the ball and take a 35-footer also reduces that momentum. It takes them out of their rhythm. It keeps them from getting into their bag and into their game. And as a result, it minimizes what they can do. Now, sure, there's some times where we try to make players more than what they are. You know, if you think about Aaron Gordon when he was in Orlando, they tried to see if he could be a star. They thought he could maybe be a Kawhi Leonard level impact scorer. I don't think that was ever what he was. Even when he was at the University of Arizona, he was never that type of player where he's like, give me the ball, I'm a walking bucket. He was more so a filler, a guy who fits between other guys, right? Contrast him to like a DeAndre Ayton, who was that type of person and not so much of a filler, right? So we see how having to adjust your game can affect how it looks. Aaron Gordon didn't look that good in Orlando. He didn't get a max contract when he was up for his rookie deal in Orlando. Then he gets to Denver and he looks great. He looks wonderful because he's playing in a system that allows him to maximize your abilities without asking you to do more and not taking away and causing you and forcing you to do less because it's evolving around one guy. You see, when we look at John Collins, we cannot forget that the man averaged 20 and 10 for a couple of seasons. He's a 36% career three-point shooter, 34 or 36%. At 6'10", he boasts over 35-inch vertical. He's got a good first step, fast twitch muscles. He's a great first and second jumper, meaning that he can jump once and get right back off his feet for a tip-in extremely quick. A lot of guys have to load up. He's got great physical intangibles. I think he's got like a 6'11", 7-foot wingspan, good touch around the rim, great lob threat, and he's a pick and pop threat. If you watched him in college, he even has a little mid-range game. Able to jab guys, pull up jumper, jab, and attack one-on-one. And so when we think about him moving to the Utah Jazz, I think a lot of things are going to change. One, the offensive system in Utah is far more free-flowing. There is no incumbent star. You might be able to say Lauri Markkanen is a little star-ish. He's made an all-star game, but that's not really saying much. It's not like he's led them to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be one of those, it evolves around one guy. This is going to be the type of space where the ball is shared, where it gets to other guys in their position to be able to maximize their talent and their skill. And I think he's going to get far more shot attempts, but not just far more shot attempts. He's going to get the type of shot attempts that actually allow him to maximize his opportunities to take advantage of his physical tools and his skills. You see, I think when he gets there, he's going to be in a space where there's less pressure to make one guy look good. And he's going to have one hell of a chip on his shoulder. He's going to have an opportunity to show everybody that he's a whole lot more than what people thought of him. All the times that people said that he was overpaid. I get so frustrated every time I have to remind people of this, but when you say somebody's overpaid, just make sure you recognize that the organization itself is probably making close to or above $1 billion a year. And so the guy that's getting paid, that you're kind of judging his wallet versus his production, you recognize that he's only getting paid a small fraction of what the team is making collectively. And that he's probably making that team far more money than he'll ever see in his contract. And you have to keep in mind what the market was at the time. If they lost John Collins in that free agency, you would have been booing your franchise. He was one of those players in one of those moments where it was a very clear, you have to re-sign him. Why? Because if you lost him, it would be such a reduction in your team's talent that they would go from a play-in team, a playoff team, back into the lottery. And then you'd be pissed off because you'd be saying, why do we draft these guys just to let them go and let them look good someplace else? Because I guarantee you, had John Collins gone to a Sacramento Kings who tried to trade for him, a Phoenix Suns who wanted him, and I can go through the list of all the teams who would love to have had a 6'10" athletic power forward, like a Portland Trail Blazers, a Washington Wizards, a Utah Jazz, Oklahoma City Thunder, a Miami Heat, Indiana Pacers, Dallas Mavericks, Chicago Bulls, Brooklyn Nets, Boston Celtics, who would love to have a talent of his stature. If you watched him leave in that free agency and go to one of those teams and compete in the playoffs, you would have been looking at him saying, man, I remember when we had him. He's saying the same thing about Kevin Huerter right now, watching him in the playoffs for the Sacramento Kings in the year that he just had. You're like, wow, we used to have that guy. And so before you start criticizing why your team signed a guy for what you may think is an overpay, recognize that the market sets the value on top of their talent level. And then you have to understand that even what they're paying them is such a small fraction of what the team is making already from having him as a talented player on that team in the first place. Most of y'all need to fall back before you start saying somebody is overpaid. John Collins, I would not be shocked if he scores somewhere between 16 to 20 points a game. I have him pegged around 17, 18 points a game next season. He's going to get about 8 to 10 rebounds. He's going to get his block a game and his steal a game. His percentages will go up. And I think he's going to look really good in Utah if he stays there. And a lot of us are going to say, why couldn't he do that in Atlanta? Well, I think the answer might have more to do with why they brought in Quinn Snyder, why they're talking to Tre Young, like we're going to have to change up this style of play, and less to do with how good John Collins is. Yo, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoy it, if you agreed, smash the like button for me. It definitely helps out with the channel. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. I'm trying to get to that good 1,000 subs. So if you stay with me this far, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. And this is Ross with The Rock Never Stops, and I'm out. Peace.